ready?
Yes.
We will now call the Hawkins County Board of Education special called meeting to order, this being June the 11th, 2020 at 4:01 p.m. Thank everyone for coming. I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Hicks.
All right. We want to proceed forward with moment of silence and the pledge and then go on. Okay. Our nation and even here locally, as close to as Johnson City, we've been going through a lot of growing pains as a nation as we continue to go through some issues, and I know that some of those may eventually spill over to the school sites. So I would like to, for our moment of silence, acknowledge what's going on and pray for those that are hurting and pray for those that are still ill and dealing with the coronavirus and other things as well, if you don't mind. Thank you. If you wouldn't mind joining me in the pledge of the flag, please. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hallelujah. Best ammunition. I'll read the conflict of interest real quick. Those of you that have a personal conflict of interest and or an indirect conflict of interest, do you acknowledge these conflicts of interest for all purposes and actions of this meeting?
I do.
Let the record reflect that all did on both conflicts. Well, we're here this afternoon due to the governor of Tennessee reacting to a shortfall of money coming into the state government, I believe. It's not necessarily Governor Lee's fault, but we are here as a direct reaction to us not receiving 2% toward BEP that we had been promised in the revised governor's budget earlier this year. If you remember, we had several conversations leading up to our preliminary budget stating that it was set at 4% in the governor's initial proposal. It was reduced to 2%, and now the resulting act is that it is that 2% is no longer there. I will turn it over to Melissa to cover the exact implications for us as far as dollars, but that is the purpose we are here today. The board did direct us to figure a 2% raise for all employees. That was passed a week ago today. And then the governor subsequently on Friday, last Friday, did take action to remove that 2% as a reaction to lack of income coming in at the state level. Word is that each state department is being asked to cut as much as 12% at the state level, and that is going to trickle down. I think that as tough as this is to talk about and the implications it does have for all employees in Hawkins County, it is a very smart, proactive move to take, and because we have to have board approval of our local budget before we take it to the commission, Melissa and I felt like it was very, very important to call you back together and provide this revised budget. With that being said, I want to make it very clear to our Hawkins County employees that we greatly value each and every one of you. We have heard you that we do need to do something with salaries. We have good benefit packages here in the county, and we continue to do so, but our salaries do need attention. And so therefore, I will state that we are willing to, Melissa and I have talked, and I've talked to Mr. Christian, if the board takes action today, that we would look at the actual figures coming in for 1920 in October. That's usually when we usually know the actuals from the year prior, about October timeframe. if we look at those and we're able to do something, even if it results in only a one-time for this year to help our employees out, we are more than willing to look at that, and I would present that as a recommendation this afternoon if you so choose to move forward with the revised budget. I just wanted to lead in with that, and I want our employees to know that if we didn't have to be here, we wouldn't be here. We would go ahead and move forward with that 2%. But at this point, with the state of the finances in the state and what that means to us locally here, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with that, with what we know is coming potentially.
So based on our ABP allocation, we're estimating that 2% is going to be a $425,000 reduction. We're slated tomorrow. I spoke with our fiscal.
Cutting out. Yeah, she's cutting out really bad.
It's better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so our with the 2% reduction to our BP allocation, we're estimating that to be about $425,000 that we will be losing for that 2%. We're slated to get our June estimate tomorrow, so we'll know a little bit better at that time. But I did speak with our fiscal agent and asked, he helped me kind of calculate and figure what we projected that 2% reduction to cost us. So along with that, and by removing the 2% salary increase from this third draft that you've been presented, we've reduced the general purpose fund budget over $872,000. So with the reduction to the BP allocation, and then with this reduction to the expenditures, that leaves us about $447,000 difference that would be taken from fund balance. So as you can see on your front page there, it changes it to the $4,271,895. And like Mr. Hickson has said, we really want to take a look and see if there's any way possible that we may be able to do a one-time bonus once all the actuals come in and we kind of see where things are when the books closes. If we are able to do that, we'll have to, of course, budget that at a later date. We'll be taking those funds from fund balance. We haven't even. I mean, we just got to look and see what we have left. And now, you all know, because you get a copy of the DEP allocation sheet, we have a required instructional salary increase on there. Now, of course, still will have to meet that required increase, but we're eliminating several positions, and also our employees will get step increases.
She's cutting out again.
As far as the $315,000, that's the required instructional salary. That's part of the BP allocation. We still have to meet that. However, that we feel like we'll meet that based on where we have eliminated several positions through attrition, and then the step increases that will still be received by the employees. So we do anticipate meeting that required increase. There again, we'll have to send everything into the state to get their approval on the budget itself. So basically, I guess what we're asking you to do then is go back and reapprove the salary scales. Just, we didn't change the scales from 1920. And then this third draft that you received that took the 2% salary increase out. That's everybody. The only salary increase that was left in there was the $250 that was for the bus drivers that finished that final part of that negotiation. Well, the step increases. But as far as changing the scales, we did not change the scales from 2019.
Just want to make sure the board members that are zooming in have heard and understand what Ms. Farmer has said.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I do.
I do.
Yeah.
I guess that now it's all's in our court, you might say.
Sure, Kathy, because I think she was.
Kathy, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
So with leaving, I'm just going to ask you a question here. If we were to leave the 2% in, of course, that's going to cost us $800 and some thousand, correct?
One time was what.
I believe Mr. Christian is referring to the prior budget amendment, which would have been draft 2. If we left the 2% in there, that $872,000 and odd change would be ongoing expenditures. It would create a new base for our salaries.
Correct.
I'm a little bit confused. Where does the 872 come from? Because I've got a number here, 425. What's the difference?
Okay, the 2% for the BEP, 2% increase to our BEP that the governor's pulling back would roughly give us $425,000 in revenue. But we're not getting that. That was built into the second draft. So that takes $425,000 straight out of revenue from draft 2. So when I go back and take out the 2% salary increase, that reduced our expenditures about $872,000. So the BEP was making up about half of that.
The other half was coming
Salary
from
increase.
GP.
And then the rest would just be local funds.
Oh, okay. Okay, I've got you now. So that was actually money that we were already, that difference is what we were already covering again with all of our local funds. Yeah, that's I understand.
And the suggestion is that when we get our final numbers in October and see where monetarily we're at, we could make the determination to do a one-time stipend of a 2% bonus stipend.
Well, we hadn't even really talked about a specific dollar amount yet until we see what the actuals look like.
We're recommending that because that gives us a year. It provides something for our employees, but it doesn't lock us down for long-term ongoing salary costs because we don't know what the status of the state revenues are going to look like until we get through this year. So it affords us the ability to give something back to our employees, but it doesn't lock us into long-term expenditures until we know kind of where the state's at.
Maybe we ought to get all the congressmen and senators in the state of Tennessee to make a donation because it's their fault. I mean, we didn't shut the school down. We didn't cause this pandemic. We didn't have anything to do with that, but yet I understand. I mean, you know, it's kind of like if you watch the whole national scene, I mean, this thing can bankrupt the whole world.
Yes.
I mean, it's pitiful, and I don't watch a lot of it because it scares me to death. I told my wife the other day she needed to pull every dime she had in anything else. I don't have anything. I've got all mine invested in farming. But I told her, I said, if I was you, I'd be pulling every dime out right now. We put it in a safe in here. What if the house burns down? I said, well, we won't be no broker, and we would be if they steal it all.
True. I do think that it is a predicament that the entire state's in. It's not Hawkins County. It's not a Hawkins County specific problem. It's not any mismanagement that's led us here. It's a decision that the state government is making to preserve monies and cash flow, and we get that. We understand that. But nevertheless, we're in this situation, and we need to be proactive. recommending.
Well, it's a perfect example of cutting your nose off to spite your face. When you start closing your income, what are your expectations? I mean, you can't expect anything. I mean, you can't draw water from a dry well. Right? I mean, it's impossible. And for me, it's just been an asinine situation. I want to ask a question. I thumbed through this stuff, and I will apologize because I didn't do it sooner. But is there any place in this that tells me what the undesignated fund balance?
Not the fund balance right now. This basically is just your revenues and your expenditures for this 1 year.
No, but yet we still have on there, on page 9, we've got what we're pulling out of something.
Right, that's what you would be pulling from your undesignated fund balance.
Yeah. I don't know what the something is. But it's okay. No, it's fine. I'm just asking if it was on there. That's okay. And then the other question I have,
but we do have that sheet, that historical sheet that we provided last time, and we can get you another.
That's fine. I'm okay. I was just curious if there was anything in here that said that. Some of these other things that I was just curious about. What? I'm trying to find one of them. There's plenty of them in here. Here's just this is 72 110 105, which is attendance, I think. So it has like superintendent director 84,154, and then the secretary, and then it's got other salaries and wages. Are those the officers or whoever?
Those are the two.
Page 19.
72 110.
Page 16. I ain't got that far yet. 16? I'm sorry, page 16.
72 210 105.
Yes. 72 110
105. Okay.
First 105 would be Mr. Sturgill's salary. He's the supervisor of attendance. 161 is Teresa Helton, the secretary. And then 189, that's Aaron Kenner and Kristen Dill, which is the truancy officers.
Okay, if you flip right over to the next page, which is health services, if I read that right, there's well over $500,000 in salary.
The one line 131 is all the medical personnel. So
that's 15 nurses.
Is that 105? Is that one person?
That's two.
Okay.
That's
a coordinated school health and Becky Little, right?
And that's a lot. I just had, when I got this sick, I didn't sit down and start looking through it. But then if you look on, and I assume this must be more than one person too, regular instruction program, that is on 19th field. Supervisor director, 381,000.
Correct. That's where that's kind of our supervisor section. So we actually have 3.8 total positions paid right there. That's where Beth's, Lori, and Thomas comes from, half of Teresa, a tenth of Angela because part of hers is paid out of federal funds, a tenth of Reba's because the rest of hers is paid out of federal funds, and a tenth of Michelle's because the rest of hers is paid out of federal funds.
It's just a little bit difficult to cipher out who all what all these positions are. When you look at one, looks like one position, and you look to another one, and you've got 3 times as much in that line. How many people's in that?
Right.
I'm just not trying to be hard. I'm just trying to understand so I can look at this and objectively figure out where we are. But anyway, those were my questions. Sorry.
I have one.
Okay, 2%. Are only, half of that, basically. The next, if 1% would be half of that, which is something, can we do 1% and still be okay?
I think that's why we have to wait and see what our actuals come in, when we see what our
We're
fund
still
balance
not
is.
sure. We're still
Right.
not sure.
We don't know. We don't have June revenues yet. We just got May's revenue. Actually, I got a report today, but it's not the final report from the trustee's office. So those always stay a month behind. So until we get all of those things in and know exactly what our total expenditures are going to be, then it's really hard to try to just say we're going to do this right now, not
That's
knowing.
what. There's a remote possibility too, and I don't want to go there. But if state departments are looking at bigger mandated reductions, there's always a trickle down. And if we know there's going to be basic flat funding now with the 2% gone, and there's potential for additional cuts if we have to close schools, if we have to close businesses, that type of thing. If we could wait till October, that just buys us that much more time to see what the realistic picture is. That's why the recommendations are. Your math is correct, Judy. I think that if we could have afforded, 872,000 with the 2%, and we were funding half of that locally, we should be able to technically or literally fund half of that via 1% now. But I would hate to give something and then have to take it back. I'd rather look at the realistic picture and then give it. But your math is solid. I think that's logically what we could have done.
Yeah, if I may, I think it is the intent of this board. We would truly like to go ahead and give a 2% or a 1%. But if we can wait until October and see where the numbers truly rest, if we can give a 2, or if we not going to be able to, I wouldn't think so, but a 4%. But we don't know till we see the numbers. So therefore, I would make the motion that we accept our director's recommendation for this option 3 and wait till October and see where the actual numbers are to see if we can give a 2% increase or a stop
Bonus.
/bonus.
I'll second it.
Okay. And can we just specify that would be a one-time, just to see what the year played out? Because yeah, okay.
That's what the motion is.
Okay.
One time.
Yeah. So we.
Are you approving the salary scale first or the budget first?
Actually, you need to probably go back and approve your salary
The
scale
salary
so that
scale.
they're in order.
Well, we got a motion and a second on the table, so
Mr. Chairman, I move we table that motion until after we deal with salary scale.
okay. Got a little ahead of ourselves there. I apologize. I second. Now, I would like to make a motion that we approve the 2021 salary scales.
And all this has the 2% reduction about where it was before.
All we did is took the 1920 scales
I'll
and
second
and
that.
changed the dates.
And we
to
have a
2021.
motion, we have a second. And the motion is to approve the 2020-2021 salary scale. And that's with the 2% increase removed. Is there any further discussion? If none, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Charles,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Pratt,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Larkin,
Abstain.
Eden,
Yes.
Grant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion. We bring off the table the motion on approving the budget.
Second. The motion is back on the floor. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion on approving the 2020-2021 annual school budget? If none, Ms. Jennifer, call the roll.
Grant,
Yes.
Eden,
Yes.
Larkins,
Abstain.
Hicks,
Yes.
Braddock,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Charles.
Yes.
Budget is approved. Is there anything else, any other comments or anything else before this board? If not,
I move we adjourn.
we are adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.